So with the current path that we're getting with Gauch versus Asta, not to mention with his friends Gordon and Gray on there and Henry helping him out against this like 4v1, well, I should say more 4v2 that we're having right now against like Gauch and also as well his sister like Mary coming into this, you're getting to understand how just terrifying of the duo this combo is, like when we see a lot more of this fight go down, and especially the fact that it's like, they haven't really fully recovered from their first onslaught against like the opponent. So like, especially with like Henry and some of the other characters right now, they're having a hard time dealing with this, like especially with 187 with this chapter, because they had the huge difficulty of trying to overcome this new combination that they have between Gauch and Mary's like combination magic between her eye magic and also as well her like mirror amp like going around. So let's go and jump into this chapter. So with what we get to understand with this chapter as like Asta's like pulling out both swords immediately. It's like, oh, we've already seen this technique already and all that. It's like he's like, this is where, you know, Gauch tries to like dodge us right now, so I just need to go in, and he's like using like all of like the mirrors to like kind of like jump around and everything, where he's like like flanging it like all over the place on there, and he's just like, this is where like now we get to find some more, like they talk a little bit more about the understanding of like his demon ruin sword, where it's like it severs the cause and effect of like of its surroundings, and it's just like immediately, and it's like basically it can remove an effect that was the result of something, such as the effect of like the poison back in like Hage, like where you can remove like sort of this thing like infecting people. So it basically can use like any of this kind of technique where it's like, it sounds a lot more useful than like where instead like his original sword that was just absorb magic, where it was like he was able to use this ability to just kind of take it in. This is now seemingly able to do that, but the thing is that whenever it uses this technique, we've seen it actually just go into the blade and turning it like pitch black. We haven't seen any more kind of effects really more to dive into the Demon Ruin Sword, but clearly I feel like there's a little bit more towards this blade itself, or what we kind of talked about as well, where it kind of looks like a little bit of a smaller version of like a Claymore or something, whereas like when we see this ability. However though, where it's like they need to go and like cancel this magic when they call it, say, oh, we need to use Ekra for this, like as they, you know, pull in Mary, and it's like, look at me, and Asta's being forced to like close his eyes throughout this entirety of this thing, where it's like he is like, he's saying, can you really avoid this magic with your eyes closed? And it's like, with Asta coming back to using his stuff that he was learning like way back with like the key sensing and like using all this stuff that he did learn with Magna in the first couple of chapters, where he's like, I like with the key and all that, I can, where he blasts it back the reflection like with his abilities, and it's just like, oh, I can actually do this, but the problem is that I can only take so much of these attacks like straight on, and it's like, oh, you're not going to be surviving for it. As Gauch just keeps going in, using multiple mirrors and mirrors and mirrors, and that is when Asta's like, okay, I can go against this normally, as we see him using the Black Hurricane, turning it into his new, like, you know, into his form, like his half-even form, which, again, we saw recently in the anime. I've been meaning to talk about the anime again as well for a while as well, because, you know, we had an amazing episode come out recently with, like, stuff concluding with the Witch arc. Like, when we looked at like with this stuff that was going on right now, like especially like when it was like this, there's a recent lot of news about like this demon form, the fact that we've had it's coming into the, you know, Jump Force, which, you know, him and Deku are finally announced the Jump Force, where it's like, oh hey, two characters I'm slightly kind of interested in playing in that game, while everyone else kind of was like same people we've had, or multitude of like Bleach Bleach, One Piece and Dragon Ball characters. You know, we don't get enough like of them, I feel like. Maybe the Bleach characters, but it's like much on there. But, you know, a little off topic, where it's like we've been seeing a lot more people being more introduced to like this mainstream form of like what he's been having, and whether or not he can fully adapt this, because he's pulling it out like in this pose where he's like, I'm just ready to go straight out, and we still don't know the full capabilities of whether or not he can, how much longer he can use this form for, or how many times now. Like, he's kind of described it as like, even though he has recently eaten a lot, like I believe the last time he said it was like he can use it about 2 times, and then that's around about it. So using one of them straight already, because like he can deal with it. He just dashes it in, uses the black meteorite, goes straight to Gauch, and then the little trick comes out where he immediately uses the mirror like item that is stuck in his eye, and he's like, oh, alright then, you looked at me, and who was in that like reflection? It's his little sister, of course, using the mirror they reflected back, and it's like, even in like Asta's form right now, like he still can't even do it. He's like, I can't cancel out the binding in time. It's like, oh, bye Asta, and it's like immediately Henry, like Gauch, and like also Gray come in, which I'm loving a lot of the conversion stuff that Gray and Gauch have been using. I think now that like Gray is a little bit more involved with the fights, is like the fact that these two can like use it where like, especially with Gauch can like use like what we've seen in all that, especially with Gordon. Like I love that stuff where it's like Gordon just uses his poison magic, goes straight in, and then Gray uses it as like, I'm gonna make this whole thing a giant mirror to go and protect Asta. And I was like, I actually generally like that, and like I thought that was a really cool little like a tag team ability that they've been doing, because we've been seeing that for a while with them, where it's like we saw them use it to turn like their poison into cotton. So these two are like actually kind of very compatible with one another with their abilities, where it's like Gordon seems to like have a way massive amount of area effect on his magic. So, and the fact is that it can be very dangerous to his opponent, like to his allies as well, like as much to his opponents. So it helps that Gray is able to kind of use this like towards the advantage. So a weird little like pairing, kind of like how you have Luck and Magna, that they're the heavy hitters, and it's like, but Gray and Gordon can technically be the utility characters next to Henry. So it's like they're on serious backup right now, and it's like they describe, especially with like Gauch, especially that he's about 3 times, like they're saying about he's at least 3 times more as powerful. And then it's the interesting part at the end of the chapter where they discuss right at the very end that Henry is literally on his last legs, like how they're describing, where it's like, I need to save him no matter what, but he's like, I don't care what happens to me. But again, it was a pretty short chapter for the most part. Like overall, I'd say it was fine, but overall, I'm curious to see what you guys think in the comments down below what you thought about this chapter. But that's all from me. Thanks as always for watching though, and I'll see you guys though next time.